Hello at last, here from the UK. The injured soul. I'm still struggling, but I am getting better. I have got the forethought of antibiotics, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I've been reflecting. Obviously I've been very housebound for quite some time now, and nothing else to do but think, which is not a good idea. Although I think when we're on the spiritual path we have to do a lot of thinking, a lot of assessing and reassessing and so forth. And I've been going through all my holidays. You want to know about my holidays, but this one I will have to let you know about because it was a total disaster. I gave this talk at a WI last year and it wasn't very successful. I think they all felt sorry for me. I'm trying to make it with humour because it was really quite humorous, because the man I went with really wasn't, well, I think he had dementia. But I'm going to tell the story. It's very basic story about Eurocamping with this man of 72 who lived next door. We'd already been to Malta quite successfully, although not really, because I found out that he didn't like to wash. So this holiday was about Eurocamping. For those uninitiated, Eurocamping is travelling in different parts of Europe camping. You get given a book of instructions and you literally are in tents. It's not caravans, it's a tents. Now I did used to go camping when I was much younger, but this is a different thing altogether. And you set off in your little car and you've got all your stuff in the back for camping, food and stuff like that, and you're given this book of instructions on where to go. And we started off, where did we start off? Well, in Dunkirk, France, and travelled down through Germany, Switzerland. Well, it was. I think I did about 4,000 or 5,000 miles. I had a Baleno at the time. I've never driven abroad before, and this man, who was obviously, well, he was obviously unwell. I thought he was just a little bit off his head, but he was as well. But he had dementia and was very fond of playing games, and of course he took me with him to do the driving. I'd never driven abroad before, and as soon as we got to Dunkirk, he stopped the car, we stopped the car, and he changed the headlights over for the other side of the road. I don't know if you've ever tried to drive on the other side of the road at midnight in the dark in a strange country, but it was quite a challenge for me because I wasn't well, and I was, in my 60s then, he was in his 70s. I won't say how long ago it was. It put me off camping forever. And you stopped off at different places. Well, it was all very well. It was all very well, but of course every time we stopped off we had to unpack, and it was difficult. And he always made it difficult because although we had a set of instructions, he didn't want to follow the instructions. He'd been before, but he didn't tell me he'd been before. And we started off at Lake Maggiore. But I didn't know this. He still didn't want to wash, and of course on these campsites you have little wash places. You don't have your own personal shower. You get given a piece of paper and a piece of soap, and off you go. And I don't think he washed, because I could tell eventually he didn't wash properly. So they started off at a bit of a nightmare, and I was driving, and I didn't know. And I think I had to cook an evening meal as well. The tents had a little tiny fridge, and the beds obviously, and that's all it was really. It didn't have much else at all. A little cooker, that's right. It was very, very basic. So off we set to this. We started off at Dunkirk and then to Lake Maggiore, which is Italy. Trot down through Italy, but the things that happened on the way, you would not believe. And I think the lesson is for me, and you might find out in the story, don't be stupid. I think psychologically I wanted the challenge, of driving through all these countries with somebody who knew what they were doing, but I soon realised he didn't know what he was doing. We kept getting lost, for instance, and getting lost on the wrong side of the road in a place you don't know is quite a challenge. And at one point I had to ring my daughter. Poor girl, she must have thought I was off my head. We'd ended up in this town in the middle of the night, and I didn't know what it, I forget what it was called now, but I suddenly pulled up the car and said, I can't do any more, I've had enough, I want to go to the toilet, I'm hungry, and he got out of the car and shot off somewhere. I think I know where he went, because he was into the world of floosies at the time, and I think this was his idea, was to travel abroad to all these different countries and try out the floosies. I don't know, but he got through an awful lot of money. So anyway, I saw this house and I knocked on the door, big double doors. Man came to the door, spoke Italian, I didn't speak Italian, and I just sobbed and sobbed, where's this man gone, you know. So we tried to find a police station. It was a complete nightmare. Anyway, he did appear eventually, and we found a hotel and stayed in this hotel. The first thing he did was have a shower, and I thought I was wrong, I was rather suspicious of that. And then it was on to the next place. So we kept going, and I had no idea where I was going. I'd never driven abroad before. He'd been before, but I think he was using his knowledge as a game to kind of get me into a state, you know, which was dangerous when you're abroad, because I couldn't read maps, and I can't read English maps, and you're getting lost on the wrong side of the road or the right side of the road and ending up with nowhere to stay. And at one time we found this hotel. Where was it? Not Maggiore, I can't remember. They were Italian, Egypt. Well, that's another story. I did go to Egypt. You know, you start off with a different places, and you ended up, I don't know where I was half the time, what country I was in. So it was all a bit of a challenge with this particular hotel. I think it was the night when we had got lost anyway, and I woke up in the night feeling terribly hungry. We didn't eat very often, you see, because we couldn't find anywhere. We were always driving, getting lost. So I got up, I put something over me, and I thought I'll go up the double glass doors to the car to get some biscuits. Well, I got the biscuits, couldn't get back in. This is 3 o'clock in the morning. So I had to knock up the landlord, whatever you call him, manager. He was furious. Italian, and there was me in my nightie with my biscuits, you know. So that was, and he gave us instructions where to go next. Don't go to Milan. We were going to go somewhere else, but don't go to Milan. Milan, 5 lanes of traffic. Where was the other one? That was another place. Oh, I can't remember. There were so many peculiar places. Anyway, I was driving a lot of the time. We were setting off for this place, and there were 5 lanes of traffic in the heat. And there was this man who hadn't washed. And I even now I look back as how did I do it? How did I do it? Well, it wasn't me. Obviously, I had a lot of help. I think I was overshadowed by somebody who knew the way, because I didn't know what I was doing, and we kept turning up at these campsites, and although he booked, I don't think they knew who he was, because he got it completely wrong. So it was all a bit of a drama, really, and quite dangerous, because I didn't know much about the driving, and he was obviously, he knew what he was doing, but a back to front sort of thing. So it was a very strange holiday, and looking back on it, and I do back on it, I think, and I don't know how I did it, because 4,000 miles and I wasn't well, sitting next to this man who was off his head, really, and I've just gone back. It was a very difficult time. I don't know, I was suddenly lost it. I was just suddenly lost where I was going, actually, on the holiday. Well, it wasn't a holiday, really, because it was just driving from place to place with this man who kept getting lost, and he wouldn't let me look at the maps to read where I was going. I think one of the most challenging times was when we set off for Pompeii. I'd never been to Pompeii. He obviously had been to Pompeii and knew how to get lost. So we set off for Pompeii, boiling hot heat, in the middle of the afternoon. I was hungry, hot and tired, and driving on the, at the side of the road, and we were lost. So we had to pull into a garage. Apparently in Italy or any other country, you can't turn around in garages. You can't change direction. You have to keep going. Well, as I understood it. So we pulled into this garage, and I just said to somebody, I did it in German, I think. Warm Italy, Voist, Pompeii, Voist, Pompeii, something like that. And we were trying to find Pompeii, so we did manage to turn round. And I can remember it vividly. It was just, I just lost it. I've told you about what I'm like when I lose it. And he was driving, I think, and we went past this sign for Pompeii. Pompeii, he drove past it. I screamed, I put on the handbrake, and the car screeched to a halt. He got out of the car in the middle of the motorway and said, I'm going to go home, where's my passport? I said, no, I've hidden it. And I hadn't hidden it because I knew he would do something like that. So I can't remember what happened. We all did get to Pompeii, although we missed the Herculaneum, which is the one nearby. Pompeii was disappointing, actually. There's nothing there. Well, I think it's been stripped so many times psychically. And of course, most interesting place was a little brothel, a little tiny cupboard like this, about this big enough for one woman, and a concrete bed for her to lie on. That was all there was. All over the wall, the delightful pictures. I thought, my God, how's he doing that for a living? I mean, it couldn't have been comfortable. I'm going to check the time in a minute, actually, darling, to tell what time it is. Well, I've still got loads more stories. I'm not quite sure whether you want to hear this sort of thing. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be unspiritual, if you know what I mean. There's loads of people out there doing stuff like that, and I think my humour is the selling point, probably. And you might see the moral behind it, because the man didn't speak. He didn't speak to me. He didn't speak all the time. He could speak, but he chose not to. And there's a lot more peculiar things that happened to me, but I still don't know why I did it, except it was a challenge to drive on the other side of the road, not knowing where I was going. I think it's a bit like the inner travel, you know. It did seem to represent this journey that I was on with this stranger, and I didn't know where I was going. I had to completely trust that something would happen, that somehow somebody, my spirit guides I guess, would show me the way, because I couldn't read Italian and he didn't know the way, so he said. So that was it. Anyway, I have to go now. Okay. Take care of yourselves. My little lights come up to tell me I've had enough.